nature materials. Nature materials? Nature
Well, we'll try to get the crowd to sort of we'll see how it goes. Let's get rid of this. Yeah, well, someone can use the desk right there. Since the desk is it's the presenter, Richard. Is that right? And where do you go? Richard. But actually, in fact, yeah, maybe if you could use those desks with the picture instead of these chairs, that might be better. Maybe we should just have where was this classroom built? It's the buildings. It's like older than you would think. It's very futuristic design. It's very futuristic design. The main thing is that this platform. There's another identical stage that can be prepared while there's a lecture going on and then rotate out. It's very smart. Very changing time. Yeah, it's really stimulating. That's good. They're probably so this is crazy another but they can do directly physics classes.
Okay, we're all here. This is the panel discussion that we're holding on careers. And this microphone is also making a noise. I'm sorry about that. I'm Joe McLennan, and I'm going to moderate this session. I'm here from CU, from the physics department, and in the liquid crystal group. And we have a panel here. I'll start from over there. This is Dave Walber from the chemistry department at CU. Tom Furtak from physics department at the School of Mines. Satya Kumar from the physics department at Kent State University. Richard, whom we all just met. Daniel Cox, who is from UC Davis. And Rachel Wan, who is from Nature Photonics. Okay. So we don't have a very rigid format for this whole session, but we have about 35 minutes. We're running a bit late, so we're going to try to finish by 3:30. And what I was hoping we would do is that people would go around and they can introduce themselves and maybe give some sort of introductory thoughts on scientific careers. So such important questions as, well, how do you find a job? Should you do that postdoc if there's an opportunity to, find a job or take a faculty position or something? Should you do the postdoc? Should you do a second postdoc? When you apply for a job, what sorts of things should you have in your package? And such questions. So I think what I would suggest we do is we can sort of go through the group once and then maybe open it up for questions, and then I'm sure all the panel members will have more things to say. Okay? So we'll start with Dave. That's okay.
If I can get this thing working.
There should just be a button on the side that you push.
Yeah, it's on the side.
There's a button on the side.
Button?
It's a little switch.
Where's the switch?
There's a button.
It's on every.
Yeah. So Well, let's see. I guess I can tell you what the, first of all, in my personal opinion, one postdoc is a really good idea. A lot of times in biological sciences people do more, but if you're all grad students, is that the deal? Or you're going to go to grad school? So in Boulder we have this phenomenon where the grad students never want to leave, and so they don't want to have to go do a postdoc unless they can get a local one. You know, if you're in an area where there's a lot of small companies around, that's where most of the job growth is, small companies. Of course, there's not much job security, but I think nowadays it's actually not so bad. You just have to be ready for that, you know, and jump to another local company in the area and bring the expertise from your company over. In terms of faculty positions, of the last 4 assistant professors we've hired, not one of them was from the U.S. I guess this is also a phenomenon that's happening. But these people come in, they know, this is right out of a postdoc, invariably, out of a postdoc. They know what early career awards are available. They have them on the chair, that would be me, to support them in getting these early career awards. And, they just jump out there and get off to a fast start. And it seems to me that I would have no chance of competing for an academic job now if I was coming companies. But, I think they're just, I don't know, the information flow and understanding exactly what you have to do. There's these networks and people seem to understand what they need to do to get off to a quick start much earlier than people in my generation did. So, for what it's worth, that's, and I think, I think it really is going to work. You start getting some really career awards and it's just a spiral up. Because everybody loves a winner. So,
good advice. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I got my PhD in physics at Iowa State University. They have a materials research lab funded by DOE there. So that turned out to be a really great place to start my career for a variety of reasons. And so all of your graduate students here, and you've made the choice of where you're going to be a graduate student, but as you look toward the next level or the next step, you should think about these places that have this kind of block funding of one kind or another. Being at that materials research lab was such a big advantage because there was a stable funding mechanism. I ended up getting my degree and staying in the lab, working with a different group as a postdoc, and then I moved on to be a staff scientist, again within Ames Lab. So I was part of the DOE science system, and all within that framework of materials research that was going on there. So it was a terrific place to start a career. I eventually got into academic teaching and research when I went to Rensselaer after I'd been at the Ames Lab for a while. I still remember the evolution of understanding of career development in our family. My wife, we lived in student housing when I was a graduate student, and my wife had a friend who was next door who was in the chemistry department, and they were a little farther along than I was, and the wife of the friend was talking to Kay, my wife, and was saying, well, yes, Bob is going to be taking a postdoc here in the next 6 months. And Kay said, what's a postdoc? Because she was of the opinion that I was going to be, taking a job that was long-lived. So as it turned out, it was long-lived period there at the Ames Lab. And I would say that the other thing about that is that I was surrounded by a lot of good role models, people who had built their careers in more or less successful ways. And so very early on, I got it in my head that I had to be very self-promoting. I mean, you really do have to do that. And I was shameless at a meeting to sort of go around and shake hands and talk to the invited speaker as they came off the podium and invite myself out to lunch with these people who were saying, oh, who are you? But it was an important thing. I mean, I think the most notorious example of this was a time when at the APX meeting there were one of these invited talks with about 2,000 people in the room, and I sat in the front row. It was a topic that I was particularly interested in. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but after the speaker was finished, there was a time for questions, and so of course I could have asked a question, but I was into making a point. So I had a prepared transparency with me, and I got up on the podium after I had sort of announced that I wanted to make this point, and I put this on the transparency projector there. So that, I would say that that's a little too pushy. You wouldn't have quite that pushy, but I would keep it in mind that just like Dave said, these things don't happen to you automatically. You have to promote yourself. And so that comes in a little different form today than it did when I was building my career, but I think that would be the strongest advice that I would give you, is that you have to be your own advocate and get out there and shake hands and know people, pay attention to who's doing what the networks are and how they work, and that will serve you well.
Well, I have a really different background than my colleagues here. I came here as a graduate student, I got a PhD, worked as a postdoc, and then worked for a company. Went back to university and worked for a federal government funding agency, National Science Foundation. Now, during the career, I came across a number of things that you, I'm sure, have come across. First distraction is what I'm going to call that, was as a graduate student, some of my colleagues, this was in 74, 75 time period, they knew there were not many jobs in physics. So there was a sort of move to find a field where you can find jobs more easily. And of course, many of them were going to computer science. And I seriously considered that. So many of the people in my batch as a graduate student did go to computer science and they graduated from there. I explored that possibility and sat down to see what is it that I need to do to get a master's in computer science. You have to get some courses and undergraduate courses and then masters and then graduate. So when I saw the amount of work you had to do, it reminded me of a saying from our chairman of physics in India. He basically said that if you're on top of your field, you don't need to worry about jobs. So I presume most of you are in graduate school, you are above average, so jobs should not be a problem. What you have to think about is what kind of job you want. Do you want to get to a company, make big bucks, but at the same time worry about losing your job in a year or 2 years from now because they are not guaranteed jobs? The other is you want to remain poor, work 24 hours a day, become a faculty member, worry about funding, put up with students. But then you have security once you have passed your tenure stage. So serious consideration has to be given. What is it you really want to do? So first one, I sort of dodged the bullet, thinking, well, I can work as much harder in physics and be good. And it seems like I work reasonably well. Then after my PhD, I thought, well, faculty members really is hard to find, with about tenure, maybe I'll try to work for a company and get paid money. Went to Tektronix, and I think most of you have used Tektronix, oscilloscopes and other products. What I found, and this may be just my experience, that really industrial research, I'm not talking about IBM, Bell Labs, or Exxon, those are different. Their research is very close to what you're doing here. But the research that most average companies do, I really don't call it research. It's development, technology development. And I felt like when I got there that I was in semi-retirement. There was no charm in going to the lab after 5 o'clock, coming on weekends. There was nobody else there. So I got a chance and I came back to faculty position, taking 40% pay cut. But from day one, I've been happy because I can do what I want, but I want to do it as much as I want to do it. So really, first thing you have to do, decide what is it you enjoy doing, because without that, no matter how much you make, is it going to happen. And once you've decided, then you know what steps to go through, follow those, and I'm sure you'll be successful.
That was actually a good lead, and I'm sort of the oddball in this group. I'm an electrical engineer. My undergraduate is from across the campus here. It's always nice to come to the pretty side, though. It's not quite as ugly as it used to be, but it's still pretty ugly over there. I went to the Institute of Optics at the University of Rochester and got a PhD. When I went and actually talked to faculty members there about what research I could do, I really wanted to push towards very applied research. I wanted to get as close to development of tools and engineering for manufacturing. And so that's what I did. So I actually did work on tolerancing of optical systems, which is a really thorny, tricky problem, but it's really not fundamental in nature. Like a lot of the other people here probably enjoy working on those sorts of problems. After that, I went to Eastman Kodak Company and I worked in their research labs. And it's very much what you were saying. They're working on really advanced development would be probably the earliest. The majority of it, there was OLED development work still going on. OLED invention, though, had occurred in the late 70s, maybe early 80s. So what's being set up here is very true. But if you're looking at an industrial career, for example, understand that there are many different types of things that can be done. There are many difficult problems that can be solved. But most of them probably aren't going to be fundamental in nature unless you're working with a company that's doing some sort of a disruptive technology, like maybe a small Boulder company that was a spin-off from the university or something like that. But that's okay if that's the sort of thing that you really do find that you enjoy. I don't think I would personally enjoy an academic career very much. After the Eastman Kodak Company, I went to Ball Aerospace here to get back to Colorado. So that was working on really development of space systems. And I was working on the James Webb Space Telescope, one portion of it. Many of the people, of course, are interested in the science part of it, but I found I really didn't care about that very much. I was interested in helping to figure out how to fabricate mirrors and how to do optical analysis for the telescope. But I was finding that was a little bit confining. So 6 months ago, I actually left and I'm working for a very small firm, and it's because I realized I really enjoy having flexibility. I really enjoy being able to pick the projects that I'd like to do, and I'm finding that I have a lot more opportunity to do that. My little company, we innovate some of our own projects, and the key there is to try to get them funded, of course, but we also do work for other people. So my path is quite a bit different. I would very much share the opinion that it's very important that you stay on top of your field, regardless of what you're doing, and that you really try to find something that you enjoy doing. And I think that all of us probably would agree on those sorts of points, whether it's fundamental research or something really, really very applied.
Let's see. First I have to say that going back to my early history as a graduate student, I actually had to walk through the snow up a hill to school every day. It's actually true, though. I was in upstate New York for graduate school. But no, putting that aside. Let's see. I guess something that comes to mind is a statement that a colleague of mine made, which is to think of yourself as a scientist or as an engineer, not as the sum of your attributes, but as the product of your attributes. That could be your intrinsic talent in doing research and thinking things through, but it's also your intrinsic talent in presenting or your work at presenting. And if any one of those things falls down in a product, then you're going to have trouble going forward in your career. So in particular then, one thing I think that is very important that is not always thought about, I think, as carefully with young people is the skill of presentation. It was dealt with just beforehand. And that's not just presentation orally, it's also a presentation in papers. You have to write papers that can be read and understood well, and you have to get the skill in doing that. I'm also the co-director of the organization, which is LC2CAM, which is helping to sponsor this meeting. And I think in a way, although he's probably too humble to do it, Yvonne should be on this panel, because Yvonne is a great example of someone who is a young scientist who has succeeded in his career to this point by taking advantage of the landscape of science as it is now and doing well in the landscape of science as it is now, because that landscape is constantly changing. I mean, yes, there are intrinsic things about faculty jobs that are the same, but the way that we have to go after funding now, for example, is completely different. So in particular, Yvonne has helped LC2CAM, and we've helped him by using some of these fellowships and exchange awards and support from LC2CAM to help advance his career. And this fits in with the self-promotion that we heard about earlier. Find those things out there in the landscape that are accessible to you and
by God, exploit them, because they not only help you, they also help the group that is running those things. We're very proud of the work that Yvonne has done, and we feature it in all of our reports on ICAM, and we're very, very proud of it. Let's see, it seems like there was one other thing. Yes, I'm an academic, and I know almost nothing about the industrial side, so I won't even try to comment on that. But if you want to succeed on the academic side, particularly in the fundamental sciences, the postdoc is important to show independence, and also it's important to find something you're passionate about, and find something that you can be identified with. Find at least one or two things that people could say, yeah, that's work that so-and-so did, because that's going to be the sort of brand or label that you carry with you. I hesitate to use that word brand because it sounds a little, it connotes something commercial, but there's a truth to it. That, you know, if there's something you've done earlier in your career, that's really the thing that will help to propel you into that academic position, successful academic position. And I think on the academic side, there certainly are jobs available, but we are, in a way, somewhat contracted because of the various budgetary problems. I fully expect those to shift, as they always do, but it's just, you know, the way it is right now. So look out there at the landscape and exploit it to your advantage, and know that that will also help the organizations that provide things for you, like ours. And feel free to exploit us too.
Okay, I guess just like Richard, I think my path is quite different from the others here. So I'm actually working as an associate editor of Nature Photonics. So before I go into the topic, I just would like to talk about a little bit about what I'm doing now. So my responsibilities include selecting manuscript for publications, commissioning and editing reviews, articles, news and views, and some front half materials for the journal, editing and writing the press releases, editorial, and research highlights. And at the same time, try to maintain links with the worldwide scientific community through attendance to the conferences and visits to the research institution worldwide. So before I joined the journal, I was a research commercialization officer of the business partnership unit for my university, trying to identify the potential research outputs for intellectual property application, and at the same time trying to commercialize the photonics research in my university. So when I was doing my PhD degree, I always thought that being a researcher and then a lecturer and then a professor was the only path that I could go after the degree. So, but at the same time, I actually had the dilemma of thinking of if research was what I actually like to do. So at that time, fortunately, I was offered this mentorship fellowship to work for the university as a research commercialization office, and I gained lots of knowledge, something that I would imagine that I would have not gained in the lab, and something like non-research based trainings. And because of the job environment, I learned a lot. Like I realized that there are many opportunities out there by not being just researchers. And I realized that by using my degree, I actually could work as a research commercialization officer, technology transfer officer, patent attorney, grant officer, and editor, and so on. So in my case, I quite like science communications. So the offer by Nature Photonics at that time was a perfect place for me to go because I enjoy communicating science, but at the same time I still have a very close contact with the photonics community. You know, make use of my photonic background. Yeah, that is the thing. And I guess my advice here is don't let your scientific background narrows down your opportunities. And but still remember that opportunities only favor a prepared mind. And yeah, try to use your degree to get what you want in your life. Yeah, this is my advice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a wonderful variety of viewpoints. I guess we only have about 15 minutes left, so I think I'd just like to hand it over to you guys to ask questions. And speak loud so everyone can hear.
Hello. I'd like to ask a question about like how we go about developing as a grad student or like young postdoc. So like later on to find a job, what should I develop or what should I do so that employers, either the departments or companies, will look for like is that a broadness of skills or should I develop like to be an expert in my field? I guess the best is that like the department or the company find my skill to be like suitable and like I'm an expert in that field. But basically, I mean, it sounds hard that it's kind of a random chance. If I improve my broadness of skills, probably I can find more job opportunity. Why I might sacrifice the expertise in the field. So, I mean, what is the balance? That's the question.
Okay, who would like to address this?
I'd like to say one point about it. Okay. One thing I think is you have to show a breadth of skills, but you got to make sure that you don't broaden yourself out so quickly at first that you don't succeed at least one thing, right? So I think it's really important to sort of, there's this old concept of initiation in cultures, and in a way in scientific culture, technical culture, I think you have to be initiated as well. And you have to do that by succeeding first at one thing. Once you succeed at that one thing, then I would think that it's important to broaden out your skills. But at least speaking from the academic side, I think it's important in that skill broadening to start early on getting a sense of how to succeed at writing proposals. And that's why, for example, writing for these fellowship proposals and things like that is a place where you can start to get practice.
I think there's a couple of small points I'd like to make with it. You have to make choices, right? And that's really what you're pointing out. Industry doesn't necessarily always look for somebody who fits a specific job, but sometimes they do. You really can't predict whether your skill set or your research is going to have somebody say, yeah, that's the perfect plug-in. I have a friend who works for Sharp right now, for example, PhD from Columbia. He was doing liquid crystal work up there. Guess what? They really wanted him. They brought him out. The guy's covered with tattoos and earrings and all kinds of crazy stuff. They didn't care. They wanted him for that job. They even got permission from upper management for it. Seriously. So in that case, he was the right guy for that job. My hiring into Kodak was done very specifically for similar reasons that I had a skill set that was very hard for them to come by, that they could plug in to some difficult situations. The one thing that translates across all jobs is your ability to communicate and your ability to work with others. And that even includes academia, where, yes, self-promotion, even in industry, is still important, but you will have times where you need to collaborate and need to work with other people. So always try to be somebody who works well with others. And that kind of integrity will certainly help as well. That's a skill that everybody needs to have.
So Dave mentioned about early career award. So would you say a little more about that? What kind of career award, and then how can we make chance higher to get the award?
Yeah, I mean, in chemistry, especially in bioscience, there's a ton of these things in biosciences from various foundations. But even there's Sloan and Dreyfus. Well, the Sloan Foundation and the Dreyfus have, sort of awards for people that haven't even started their academic job yet, but they've got, they know they're going into it. And there's another level where somebody that's in their first 3 years. These things all have sort of specific requirements in terms of you have to be within some young. And a lot of times only accept a few proposals from a specific university, or one or some number, so there's an interim competition. So it's a combination. Well, and how do you find out about these things? Well, each discipline has their own set of these things. And so just go around and talk to the assistant professors in your area and see what they're doing. How these people find out about these things, I don't know. Because I certainly
The web.
More questions?
tech I can figure it out.
It's on.
This message is from Oksana at Cambridge, and it's to Rachel. How different is work in nature publishing from the academia? Is it more like industry? Do you have an option of going back to research?
Okay, hi. Yes, I think, how to say, it's not really like an industrial-based job, to be an editor of a Nature Publishing Group, because while working as an editor, you are still having a very close contact with the photonics, with the community, research community. So I guess we do have this kind of examples, like some of the editors, they go back to work as a researcher in a university or R&D department of the company. So I guess there's no problem for an editor to go back to the research-based job because of the job environment offered by the editorial career in Nature Publishing Group. Yeah, because remember, at the same time, you are still having very close contact and you still get to know what happens in the research, and the state of art of the technology. So you are always working parallel with the photonics and the research community.
And then just a question for the panel for me. Would you recommend taking any teaching coursework as an undergraduate, graduate, or postdoc?
You mean coursework in how to teach?
Correct.
That's a great question, and that speaks to the whole issue about presentation and communication skills, because if you can become an effective teacher, it's going to improve your presentation skills, it's going to improve your ability to think on your feet. At our institution, the TAs actually have to go through a training course that they get credit for. So it's already built in, at least in our department, in our institution. But if someone else wants to talk about that.
So there's a lot more to good teaching than just good presentation. You have to understand how people think, how they learn, how they pay attention to any material that you put in front of them, design of course, materials, active engagement teaching. There's quite a bit to this, and as people who are in the physics education research community know, this is an academic discipline of its own now, with its own physical review online branch now. So at the very least, you should pay attention to that type of information because it's out there, and you can become familiar with it without being a participant. And I think that when we invite applications for new faculty positions at the Colorado School of Mines, we're not a very big place, but we'll get 250 applications for a faculty position in physics. And we ask every one of the applicants to provide a statement of teaching philosophy. And most of the people haven't thought about that very much. And it's a kind of a sifting mechanism for us, though, because the people who have, even if they have what I would call cursory understanding of the techniques of good teaching, they stand out. And those are the people that we're going to be interested in a place like ours. So I do think that it helps build your credentials beyond the ordinary background of getting a degree and then being a postdoc and working in a lab and then suddenly being asked to proclaim a teaching philosophy when you hadn't really thought about it. So I think a little investment there is well worth it.
I just want to mention, we don't require a teaching philosophy in applications, but your very first year you have to write one. Right? So everybody expects you to think very carefully. After, it's one of these things, they don't expect you to have classes in teaching, and there aren't really very many, if they're attended.
But perhaps some experience teaching during the postdoc course.
Yeah, sometimes that's, but we do have a TA training, but that's fairly minimal to address.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
If you are interested in teaching, there are more and more of these days of these things called teaching postdocs. Drivers is a formal way to do it, but they're becoming more and more prevalent. In fact, I'm really pitching it at my institution because we're all under Cal Poly Pomona, we're all undergraduates. And for me to bring in a full-blown postdoc is impossible, but if I could get someone to split teaching with their research, if you're thinking about a career in teaching, I think that'd be you should really consider those teaching postdocs because they're often really fine young, undergraduate institutions, and you'll get a full taste. You'll know after that year whether you want to do it or not.
I was just going to say, I'm not in the field of physics, or I'm a web developer for ICAM, but my undergraduate experience with my professors, great researchers, but not so great at teaching. And one of the things that I constantly read and hear is that the lack of people going into these fields, science and education, is a major problem. So we need to figure out ways to inspire. And the people who are inspiring the next generation are the people in this room. So that's why I just bring up the point.
Thanks. Another question?
So I've never taught myself. I've given a couple lectures. I'm still an undergraduate student, but I have tutored for about 3 years, about 30 hours a week, and I recommend that just on the basis is that you deal with a whole range of people. I tutored in math and physics, and you learn how to explain things in different ways, and you learn as you deal with multiple people on that one-on-one basis which ways work and which ways don't work, what ideas or how you explain ideas get across to the most people, so that if you are going to teach and you are going to go on forward, you have an idea that, oh yeah, when I explain it this way, 75% of the people get it. And so that will also help.
I'd like to make one more point. So, you come into a research university and you're expected to run a research program. Teaching is still an important, very, very important component of what you're doing. So, in my experience, some really outstanding researchers are outstanding teachers, and and it can work the other way. But at the University of Colorado, at least, we have a teaching excellence program. And so if you're struggling with your teaching, which is basically measured by student responses on a course questionnaire at the end of each semester, then they will come in and videotape you. This is an incredibly powerful technique. They'll come in and videotape your lectures, and then a whole bunch of people will sit around with you and critique what you did. And it sounds painful, but it really works. And so you can learn how to be a good teacher if you're motivated.
On the subject of teaching and research, you really have to work a fine line. Obviously, taking classes, improving your presentation or teaching skills is great anywhere. But if you're going to go to postdoc, that's really teaching postdoc and then teaching job. Your marketing works are part of research, universities, colleges, and places where they don't have a research program. So you have to really decide, is that what you want to do? Or do you want to stay in a research institution, be a good teacher?
Okay, we have a comment. No.
You just have to speak up.
And then I think when he's done, we may have time for one more question. So if there's a burning question, does anybody have one more question?
Well,
What?
I have one question.
Okay, so excellent.
So, okay, this isn't a question, it's a comment. And nobody's really addressed this, so I'll try not to make a complete fool of myself. But you want to have a career in science and engineering. Okay, so let's just say you do a PhD in, the arcane details of the, liquid crystal behavior of, some particular phase of some particular molecule. You're not likely to get a postdoc doing that. Okay? So maybe you'll get a postdoc doing liquid crystals, or maybe it'll be a postdoc doing optics. As you start out and go along, you have to learn about these other, this sort of broader picture. You have to be spending some fraction of your time just learning stuff, that you don't need to, do this particular project. Now, this can look lots of different ways, but, reading the news and views in Nature Photonics every week is kind of, a kind of thing. So, learning the bigger picture, so what I'm doing in this particular thing might be useful other ways, or and then an aspect of this is just learning how to find things out. Learning how to find what's out there that might be applicable to, to what you're doing. The more of this sort of, internal web and network that you can build around what you think might be your career path, the stronger you're going to be. And it just can't, it has to be, you have to be somewhat aggressive about this. It has to be a kind of habitual activity. It's like being in the workout room if you're a football player.
Thanks. I think this will be our final question.
Okay, well, actually, Lord Clark just kind of answered my question. I was going to ask about what's the best way to prepare yourself for selecting the postdoc, or how do you select the right postdoc for yourself. Then, actually, I have a second question, which is, it's for actually people who are in academia. When there's a postdoc walking in your lab, I was wondering, what do you expect, or what do you like from the postdoc? Maybe besides working out 12 hours or per day in your lab, what do you appreciate from a postdoc?
Well, if I had a new postdoc starting in my lab, the reason I would have hired him is, first of all, he has accomplished something in his previous dissertation work, and he's enthusiastic about the research that's going on in my group. Secondly, capable, I'm going to read the letters, and of course, the qualifications are met, he will be in my lab. But I expect you to be sort of independent in some ways. Think yourself rather than every time there's a strange result come back and to me or somebody else. You have to become, eventually, when assistant professor, one of the things is you have to be an independent researcher. So this is the time to inculcate those habits. The other is to be able to help graduate students in different research areas. It's really, accomplishing results is one, but then showing enthusiasm, interest in new things, and being a team player by helping students, even though you are not going to probably be on their papers or be involved in the research in the longer term. So a feeling of belonging to the group and helping everybody is what I'm looking for.
Anyone else? I think we have to wrap up. We are running a little bit late. I'd like to thank the panel members very much.